Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in our country and actually in the world, and yet it's largely preventable. It has been trending up in terms of our national rate of suicide over the last decade or so. It had trended down prior to that. So we're at a place now where we really want to make a difference. We want to use the methods that we know can work to lower the suicide rate and allow those who are struggling to get the help that they need. Mental health problems play a significant role for suicide risk. In fact, if you had to pick out one of the many risk factors that tend to come together to create suicide, mental health problems could be called actually a necessary but not significant factor in place. In greater than 90% of cases of suicide, as shown in the research, there is a diagnosable mental health condition at play, whether or not it was diagnosed or treated. Now, many other factors then lay on top of that to rise up to create an imminent risk for that sense of desperation, hopelessness, but then also the thought and the planning and the ability to act on those suicidal impulses.
The summer learning loss is a term that they use to describe the regressions that kids in low-income neighborhoods face relative to their affluent peers. So they say in lower-income neighborhoods kids forget anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 months of what they learned during the school year over the summer, while their middle-class peers break even or even make gains. When I first learned about the achievement gap, I was a freshman in college and I certainly wanted to understand what the causes of it were. And as I started to do my research, I realized that there were 1,000 different reasons why the achievement gap existed, everything from a lack of positive role models to poor health conditions in so many of these inner-city and low-income neighborhoods. And then I found this startling statistic that said that 2/3 of the achievement gap could be directly attributed to unequal summer learning opportunities, or the summer learning loss. In low-income neighborhoods, kids forget anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 months of what they learn over the summer from the school year, and so when they return to school they are now 2.5 to 3.5 months behind their affluent or their middle-class peers. Just to put that in perspective for you all, the school year from September to June is only 10 months long. If a kid forgets 2.5 to 3.5 months of what they learned, that's almost 25 to 35% of their learning. Teachers have then reported that they spend anywhere from 1.5 to 2 months reteaching old material. So if you add that additional 20%, you're talking about 50% of a kid's learning. So we sit here and we ask ourselves, why does an 8th grader only have a 4th grade reading level? And the truth of the matter is that theoretically speaking they've only been in school for half the time.
Me first show you how the unity is shown in chimpanzees. What you see here is two males on the left who are standing together. You also see the big canine teeth that they have. And they're standing together and they demonstrate to the rest of the group, we are together. We are a unit. The males on the right are walking together in synchrony. That's another way of demonstrating that you are together. And so demonstrating unity is extremely important in a coalition system, and as I said, in the primaries always I'm waiting for that moment because then you have two members of the same party who have been fighting with each other, and they need to come together at some moment. And it leads to very awkward situations. People who don't like each other need to embrace each other and stand together, and that's absolutely essential for the unity of the party, and if you don't do that, the party may fall apart. And so if it doesn't go well, like in this particular case, then the party is in deep doo-doo because they have not demonstrated unity.
In 2015 I traveled to Colombia to prepare for the first ever prevention study in Alzheimer's disease. A simple blood test could detect the mutation. If the study is successful, patients could be identified and treated before the onset of symptoms. But what about the rest of the world with Alzheimer's disease? Do the different genetic and environmental risks? What about patients like my friend David? Today's technologies, smartphones, wearables, online patient communities and online assessment tools can be used to gather data in an unprecedented global scale. With enough data, we can begin to understand the emerging genetics and this disease much the way Dr. Lopra did in Colombia. When that happens, we can begin to understand your risk for Alzheimer's disease. The biological pathways that are the most important in you, and most importantly, when to begin treatment. Now it's the time that patients, family members, physicians, scientists and drug developers all have a role to play in defeating Alzheimer's disease.
So we had the idea, can we take some of these NASA-type ideas and apply them to our carbon problem here on Earth? Could we cultivate these NASA-type microbes in order to make valuable products here on Earth? And we started a company to do it. And in that company, we discovered that these hydrogenotrophs, which I'll actually call nature's supercharged carbon recyclers, we found that they are a powerful class of microbes that had been largely overlooked and understudied, and that they could make some really valuable products. So we began cultivating these products, these microbes, in our lab. We found that we can make essential amino acids from carbon dioxide using these microbes. And we even made a protein-rich meal that has an amino acid profile similar to what you might find in some animal proteins. We began cultivating them even further, and we found that we can make oil. Oils are used to manufacture many products. We made an oil that was similar to a citrus oil, which can be used for flavoring and for fragrances, but it also can be used as a biodegradable cleaner or even as a jet fuel. And we made an oil that's similar to palm oil. Palm oil is used to manufacture a wide range of consumer and industrial goods.